horizontal, but the player in possession then tucks his head in, and on my game I think flicked his legs as well. And I think it might have been Kenny Edwards that was on the end of it. I'm not sure, but there was contribution by the player in possession, and that's what happens with Hooley. He tucks his head, and if he doesn't tuck his head, for me, he doesn't land on his head, and that's obviously what match review panel have determined. And to pick up on somebody's question, which was about the protocol between the video referee and the referee, I understand that the video referee did recommend a red card, and the referee chose to sin bin, and he's entirely within his rights to do that. The process is that the video referee reviews the angles and gives his recommendation as to an outcome, and the referee will have had a live view of it. He's probably seen it on the screen as well, and he will form his own opinion. And
so that's slightly different to VAR, where could you go back and have a look at the screen because you've made a mistake, or you might want to...
Yeah, the video referee will review any incident where play is stopped. A video referee will review that incident. Now, if there's been a play of the ball that's happened, the most that they can ever do is recommend an on report. That player can't be dismissed or sent off because it's kind of the game's moved on. But in that instance where it's penalised immediately, it's obviously reviewed. And I think Tom got to the right outcome. Tom Grant got to the right outcome, and I'm fair play to him. It took some courage to do that, because the easy decision would be probably to red card somebody because you've just red carded somebody else on the other side. And for me, you have to judge each one on its own merits.
Well, let me read the statement that Castlewood Tigers have released. From Danny Wilson, he says, "I think you could see everybody in the game's reaction to Liam Watts alone." Everybody? I'm putting in editorial comment. At the end of the day, people make mistakes. Yeah.
No, at the end of the day, it is the night.
I think it was Mike Dickin, the great old talk radio presenter, who used to cut people off if they said "at the end of the day" and stuff like that. He didn't like his health being questioned. My health was not in question, he would say. At the end of the day, people make mistakes. Players make mistakes. Match officials make mistakes.
Certainly do, yeah.
I should have pointed at Phil and said
I made plenty.
I think I've got players there. And you can live with that if it sits with the game. When it goes to the match review panel, it gets graded in a way in comparison to other instances over the weekend. We're left a bit confused, so we need to get our house in order pretty quick. I don't know if that's the RFL or Castleford. To do that, we need some explanation of why they are graded the way they are. We've asked for an urgent meeting with the powers that be for some explanation. The powers that be. Is that just Rob Hicks? But
they've had all the
what was it?
And it's all on the website anyway.
If
They will have had a conversation with Paul Cullen, because I'm sure Paul Cullen will have been on the phone, or if not, he will be, and there will be a conversation, and there'll be understanding and a grading. There'll be a charge, won't there? And in the charge, it will state, the reasons why that player is being charged. I think when you watch the footage, I think that, you could sort of lip read what they were saying.
I don't think they were too impressed.
No, I think the one word that was clean that I could read was mitigation. And I think that their argument was that he was dropping. And for me, when you watch it, he doesn't drop. He drops as a result of the contact. So I don't think that's an argument. And, shoulder charges have been outlawed for a number of years. Mm-hmm. The players have to wrap. There's no wrapping motion whatsoever. And therefore rightly sent off and rightly charged in the way he has been. He's not a victim. And that incident will have been reviewed against not just incidents this year, but incidents in previous years, because it's a shoulder charge. Shoulder charge have been outlawed for a number of years. So, they're wasting the time, in my opinion, if they're going to appeal that.
At what point, when a player's been banned multiple times for not long times, but multiple bans over the years, does a club say, maybe there is a problem with the player, or the way we're coaching the player, or successive coaches have coached the player, for that player to keep being banned for many of various
I think we mentioned on this podcast before about James Bentley. James Bentley, had a number of incidents, didn't he, over, 12 months or so. But, he seems to have, changed his ways a little bit. He hasn't been in front of the disciplinary, I don't think, for a while. And, ultimately players and clubs have to look at what's within their own control. Don't give the referee a decision to make.
The other thing that I thought was interesting was teams going down to 12 men, because we had a direct contrast between Friday night and Saturday. So on Saturday we're told that it's absolutely heroic that Catalan with 12 men for an entire half have beaten Warrington. But we're also told that at the
Because
same time that Castleford are playing Wigan, not the Friday night,
On the other channel,
exactly the
yeah.
same
The
time,
other channel.
the game was over the minute Liam Watts got his red
Yeah.
card. Well, but it isn't.
It's not.
It clearly isn't.
It's nonsense, is that argument? Because it works both ways, and there's been countless examples over the years where you've seen that.
And yet, you know, it does take a pretty exceptional team to win with 12 men for a half against a team with 13, but it's not a given.
No,
And teams are going to have to get used to it because this is going to happen
that's
more
it.
this year.
And I'm pretty sure in training they will have been practicing defending with 12, because the reality was there was probably always going to be a number of cards early in the season.
And Catalan were fantastic. And you know, maybe Warrington didn't throw enough at them with that extra man, but because of scoreboard pressure that Arthur Morgs tried put on Warrington, they seemed to panic a little bit more than the Dragons, whose defence was. But there was enough of that game still to go for Castleford to say, we're not throwing in the towel now just because we've had a man sent. Now that narrative isn't right, that just because you had a man sent off, the game ended. But I saw quite a lot of that on social media, and I thought, well, haven't I just watched the game where it's the absolute reverse of that?
Absolutely.
Gav has said, if you're going to crack down on head contact, then you have to start cracking down on players going into tackles with their heads down. Spear tackles have been outlawed too, and I find it insulting to insinuate that the Cas player was willing to risk permanent injury by diving headfirst into the ground to get a penalty.
No, I'm not suggesting he was doing that, but you know, if you do a forward roll, you'll tuck your head in. You know, as you know, my little son goes to gymnastics, he'll be taught to tuck his chin in and tuck his head in as he does a forward roll. So I'm not suggesting that that's what his intention is, but ultimately his actions lead to his head being on the floor, in my opinion, and that's shared by Match Review clearly, and was shared by the on-field referee.
Shoulder charges running into a player with shoulder, completely different from the union rules of having to wrap. They can't just make contact to the head. The problem is, in Rugby League in 2024, we went to that briefing, and what I took away from it, because I forgot most of it, was if you make contact with the head, at the very least it's going to be a penalty.
And it is the responsibility of the tackler to avoid contact with the head, not the person who's running with the ball. So I think that again, we've only seen clips of the Tom Amone one, and we don't want to go through every one.
No,
and
I've not
forensically
seen
analyse
that one actually.
And it's head-on-head contact, but
Right.
he's standing upright to somebody coming towards him, and there's no avoidance. And we were told in that briefing that it's the responsibility of the tackler to make sure that the heads don't clash. Now,
That was always going to be controversial when it happened. Now, I've not seen that instance, so I can't. It's difficult for me to comment. But and I appreciate it was on TV because they're all on TV, but it wasn't on a main channel, if you like. So it's probably not got the traction.
You can't just watch
and having
every
the
can't.
card.
I know
Yeah.
people saying you can watch.
But
No,
head clashes are still controversial in rugby union. Head clashes are still controversial in rugby union, and they've had sort of these sort
but
of harder
the
policies
reasons
for a while.
for all of this, it goes beyond. It's a head clash. It goes to the game needs to be seen to be taking steps to ensure that contact with head is at its absolute minimum if they're to get insured.
Yeah.
So nobody can complain, and it will every week a club will be affected by a head-on-head contact. So it's something that we've got to live with
Yeah, and defenders have to avoid
wherever they can.
wherever they can.
Or at least be
head
seen to be
contact.
dipping out of, there can be mitigating circumstances, but if you stand fully upright and your head meets the ball carrier's head, you will be deemed to be responsible.
I mean, going back to the framework that they're working to, as far as I can gather from listening to the audio that you can hear on TV when the referee's pulling the players out and going through almost the step by step, almost like a tick box thing. They're looking at, is there contact with the head? Yes or no. If there is contact with the head, is that forceful or dangerous?
Yeah.
If it's forceful, is it a low level force or high level force? And are there any mitigation or aggravating factors? In a way, it's a fairly straightforward process, so they've got to just go work through that process. Now, clearly they've probably not got them all right, because Momorowski, is that how you say his name?
Momorowski.
I've got it wrong, but I'm near enough.
Not Von.
Momorowski. Is that it?
Momorowski.
Yeah. Say it quickly. He got sin binned, and there was a long delay to arrive at that decision, and I think too long to
That's what
arrive
we've
at a
got to
decision.
avoid.
Yeah.
And the game does have to try and avoid that, because we want continuity in the game. So he hasn't been charged, which would suggest that he probably shouldn't have been sin binned. So that was an interesting one, and I think the Crowther one in the Catalan Warrington game was sin binned, and he's not being charged. So
I think he's got a game.
Oh, has he? I didn't see that on the
Well, the
chart.
contrary behaviour or something, wasn't it? I think.
Oh, was that what it was? Okay, yeah, because that was a hit off the ball, really. So I was surprised when I was looking down quickly and I thought, I've not seen that
Yeah,
name.
I think he got a game.
Yeah, fair enough. So what I would say is across the weekend, I actually think the referees and, well, not just the referees, the on-field officials and the video referees, I think they've done really well.
And I think the other thing is the explanations that we've been able to hear clearly have gone through that process that you've got, you know, the player's been called over, we think it's forceful, we don't think there's any mitigating circumstances, therefore go and sit down.
Yeah.
And actually, if you can hear more of that explanation, fans
Agreed, and that kind of brings me on to my next point, which is I think there's an opportunity for the video referee's microphone to be on air.
Yeah.
In the discussion, so I don't think I have no problem with Jack Smith as video referee recommending to Tom Grant it's a red card and Tom Grant saying no, thank you, it's a sin bin. But have it open, have it transparent. I think when you hear the video referee talking through try decisions, no try decisions, you may still disagree with the decision, but you understand the process, you understand how they've arrived at a decision. So for me, it will also fill that void where referees and touch judges are sort of loitering around waiting for feedback. To actually just open the channel open, let's hear the conversation, how they're arriving at the decision.
Now that we've only got one commentator and one summariser, which is a much cleaner way of presenting it, you've actually got the gap to be able to do that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Kevin, you'll be pleased to know that Harry Smith hasn't been banned, so he will play in the World Club Challenge. Well, if Matt picks him on, he might not pick him. You don't know. He could pick Ryan Hampshire.
And by the way, before the conspiracy theories come out, similar people were complaining last year that was it George Williams was banned for the England games and he shouldn't have been banned. So, I would suggest that the charge is reflective of the incident and has nothing to do with the game that's taking place.
No, I think the bigger clubs do get preferential treatment. I think we need to keep that conspiracy theory going.
Are Leeds still a big club? Are they still a big club?
They are in Leeds.
What rules are we playing on Saturday?
No idea.
I don't know. I'm looking at you as if you've got any influence. I don't know why.
No idea, and that will obviously be a discussion between the clubs really, because it's two domestic competitions that are coming together. One would imagine they'll play as near as they can to the international interpretations.
Well, we haven't had the referee appointed yet, have we? But
That's tomorrow.
I'm assuming a referee hasn't flown over from
No,
Australia.
I would highly doubt it. It'll all be it's all about money, isn't it? These events, and so I'm pretty sure it'll be an English set of officials.
Here's Adam. I often find it quite arrogant and condescending when RFL leaders or journalists say that players just need to learn or adjust. Not all, but some poor tackles are not the result of conscious choice, but the result of players having to make split-second reactions under fatigue and pressure. We may be trying to create something that is unviable, just as Alex Walmsley and many other players state. We'll come on to the players in a moment.
He has a point there. But and habits do sometimes take a while to change. Having said that, players playing the ball with the foot is, I would say, I don't know what the stats are, but it's very high percentage players are now touching the ball with the foot, never mind making a genuine attempt. So maybe that's an easier fix than tackle technique.
But tackle technique has never said go and hit the head of the opponent.
No, or the neck.
He did that. He did that.
But and that's the danger, isn't it?
Long enough ago that all players playing under the current rules kind of adjusted to that.
Yeah.
Game's gone soft.
Tell that to George Williams.
Before we get on to... I know we've got more games to talk about and stuff, but seeing as I'm talking about players, and I've got another... The Castleford statement, that's poor. And it should have been spell checked before it went out on the website. Even... And I can say this as someone who has someone professionally check my work for me. Other statements that are poor this week from clubs. Lee Leopards. Yep, picking on you now. Obviously talking about the Zach Hardacre statement. The club was made aware of the situation at the earliest opportunity and has supported Zach since and will continue to do so. The club will be making no further comment. Which is fine, you don't have to make any further comment. But at least you think they might condemn his actions because they're not condemning him. I'm not saying they condone them, of course, but there's nothing in that saying he's been a bad boy, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. This is... What a terrible statement to put out to the public. What a terrible statement.
Fortunately, there were no victims in the incident, but there quite easily could have been when you turn a car over.
And he won the Man of the Match award. So well done the sponsors for that on Friday. Deary me. The club should have also changed that as well.
I don't know what it says about culture, because it's this indefinable thing that everybody talks about, but beginning of last season, Castleford had an issue with one of their players who was seen all over social media.
Well, I did enjoy Tanya Arnold on the BBC coverage refer to him as having some, referring to it without referring to it, which I thought was a nice.
But I thought the statement surrounding that was relatively poor at the time, in that it didn't make any account of the victims, the fact that he wasn't stood down, and that season culturally seemed to go from bad to worse. And even this year, when a new coaching regime has taken over, they've talked about there aren't the cliques that there were last year, and you just wonder whether it comes from the very top of a club not making a statement that absolutely categorically defines what they stand for. And it's a little bit the same with the Zach thing. It's like, by saying nothing, you are almost condoning what he's done. At the very least, it should say we're helping him out with some, educational stuff or rehabilitation or whatever. And we are disappointed in his actions because we think he's, we like to think that we offered him an opportunity, and we are slightly disappointed that yet again we're back here saying he needs to be whatever he needs. And I just think it does need more than that. If you are going to have a club that presents the right image to players, fans, broadcasters, sponsors, and that is a nothing statement.
I'll say it again. When Robert Elster made a big song and dance about banning players who weren't coming back anyway, we've got to draw a line somewhere. So RFL, Super League, in this brand new era, where we're putting all the focus on the players being stars and we're making them into
and Mikey Lewis
whatever.
Does that week one, match one.
Well, in the NRL they have what's the unit called?
The integrity unit, which is
we need one.
And I think there's
an
probably
incident
an
like
argument
that
of
would
that.
be referred to the integrity unit.
Yeah.
Players have got to take responsibility for their own actions, whether it's on or off the field. Gav's also, Paul and Gav have pointed out York Acorn statement. Have you seen that one? I mean, they're mitigating circumstances. They're not a professional club. But yes, it was...
Was that down at Cornwall?
Yeah, that wasn't a great thing. I'm sure the RFL must be investigating that because we haven't heard anything. So we'll hear about, it'll be June or July or something. I'm joking. Players, then, there's nothing more we can say about that because there's no point. But the players, Alex Walmsley's written an article. If you got through all the adverts on whichever website's been published on, well done to you. Basic gist, but I know you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the podcast. There'll be an advert.
There are a number of times though when I click on some of those, I think I'm done. I can't. I can't even get beyond the first paragraph.
When I edit the podcast, I'll put an advert here. Right, let's 2 second gap. Right, we'll put an advert there. So, Alex Walmsley's written an article. Haven't read it, but the gist is the players want more of a say, which is they definitely should have more of a say. Mm-hmm. Of course, they should. They're the most important asset we've got. They've also got to take responsibility for their own actions. What's the change from 2 years ago when Gareth Carvell was on this programme? You can go back and watch it. I put the link up earlier. Or
you can go back even further than that, can't you? With John Wilkins
where
set up.
is it?
What was it?
Where's the link?
League 13,
Where is
yeah,
it? It's on here somewhere because you've got him with some kind of Russian.
Oh yeah.
For whatever reason, players have not bought into previous incarnations. Of
some kind of Russian, some kind of socialist. What's going on there? Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why, because I think membership of the GMB has gone up actually over the last few years, hasn't it? I believe anyway. So I think that this feels like there's an appetite there for players to get involved. But he makes some valid points in that when you look at the equivalent association down under and the collective bargaining agreement and the power that actually the players do have, and probably rightly should have to some extent to influence the game, because without them there is literally no game.
But there is a whole logistical service underneath the Rugby League Players Association in Australia. Yes, every team has representatives, but there are fully paid staff. That comes out of your subs. When you're being paid a lot of money, it's easy to pay for that administrative structure underneath. I suspect we don't have that, and the Wilkin Peacock axis failed because they didn't generate enough subs off the players to pay for what the GMB currently have or what Rugby League Cares. I mean, Rugby League Cares are in Australia at the moment. Steve McCormack, Gareth Ellis, Steve Hardesty are down there talking to the RLPA. So is it something that we need to extend within rugby league
Well,
cases?
I think it references in the article, Clint Newton, who is
full time paid.
His role down under. I think he's spoken to players over here and tried to sort of sell the virtues of it, but for whatever reason, not got the buy-in. And well, I'm afraid that you kind of reap what you sow to some extent. That sounds a bit mean, but having said all that, players have been consulted. I think I've already said the players have been consulted, and
Certainly
senior
about the rule
coaches,
changes,
senior players, and senior and coaches have been involved in those discussions and consultations.
And ex-players as well.
Yeah. So, and match review panel, disciplinary, all contain ex-players, ex-coaches, whatever. So, yeah, there is a place for a strong players' union. So he makes a valid point, but
you're going to have to get more money into the game. That will filter through to the players being paid a little bit more, and some of that being paid a little bit more becomes part of their subs to a stronger players' union, which then gives you the chance to get more money, and it becomes a more virtuous circle. But you can't start something if you're at such a low base at the moment anyway.
No.
And that was, again, the Peacock-Wilkin thing was only aimed at Super League players, but not everybody signed up for it.
No.
If they had, there might have been enough for a senior administrator or something to rival perhaps the GMB in terms of what they've already got within their organisation, but it never got to that point.
So that's my understanding. As being part of the GMB, you've got access to all their
absolutely.
things, which makes sense for a sport which doesn't have the money to have players paying out for full-time staff or whatever. So how do we get to this point? Unless the players buy in,
we generate more money.
And what is the big issue with the players at the moment? Is it because they can't hit people in the head anymore? Because that seems to be where it stemmed from, and I understand that. And that's obviously not the case. It's me being flippant, but we're in this position because of those that have gone before the players of today.
I think it is
and
about
their legal action.
It's about being able. If you are the fruit of the labour, you want some say in conditions of employment. It's not dissimilar to any other union, and there's been some fabulously heartbreaking programmes on about the miners' strike at the moment. And again, a lot of it is not about we want to determine the productivity coming out of the pit that we work in. It's that we want to say in the conditions, and it became a political battle that went beyond the industrial side of things. And I get that if they are the instruments that are being harmed in some way for our entertainment, they need a say in that. But that is different to unionised in the same way that the Rugby League Players Association are in Australia, because they have the resource. If you paid players significantly more than they're being paid at the moment, and they were prepared to put a proportion of that into their own union, they would see a return on that investment. But it has to start with more money in the first place. So let's all crow about how good round one's been, get more people going to see it, get more, Ron Sealer back, good news, get more new sponsors involved, get more money to the players then when they go and negotiate their contracts, get the salary cap raised at some point so that players, minimum wage can be higher. We're still, in this country, we've got that ridiculous anomaly where academy players are being paid less than they would if they were working in McDonald's, and they could be playing first team this week.
Though there might be a whole,
so there is. It's clearly wrong, but you can't change it overnight or just say we need a powerful players' union. I wish it was as simple as that.
I don't know how we get to that point without the players generally buying into it. They've got nothing. I don't think they've got anything to go on strike about at the moment, have they? They're all being paid, and probably not as much as they want to be, but that's the same for everyone in any walk of life. But it's how they've got to get. It's okay. All the players retweeting Alex Walmsley and putting clapping emojis and saying, "Yeah, go." You've got to actually do it now. It's like saying a podcast. You can say you're going to do a podcast, but you actually got to do it and get a camera and stick it up so it makes James look better. Get rid of the salary cap, says Kevin. Well, do we trust people? Trust the players. Trust the players implicitly.
I get rid of the salary cap because we're in the entertainment business, and I think if an owner wants to go out and, we've seen in football, haven't we? How many times have certain clubs,
The thing is, we've got a salary cap
They-
at the moment, and it's in a way people are not even spending up to the cap,
Well, that-
so it
isn't that
doesn't
the
actually it defeats the object of
Isn't
having
that
the
the
cap.
problem
in it.
with Hull at the moment? That by their own admission, they are not fully spending everything they could,
Right.
because at the moment maybe Adam Pearson isn't in a position to keep doing that, and that's determines the kind of players that they're recruiting. But yes, the salary cap should have a floor, and I think that's something that IMG talked about. If you're going to be a long-term sustainable club, minimum salary cap is a requirement. But
But then the NRL has a cap, don't they? Do they not? And
They
does
do.
rugby union have a cap?
yeah, rugby unions is unsustainable.
Well, and we've had
Which again-
however many clubs go to the wall in rugby union.
Which
so
is why I wouldn't have one. So if you do have an owner that feels that they can put their hand in their pocket and buy more quality players, it doesn't necessarily guarantee a quality team or a winning team. But if we can get some more stars in, yeah.
Who are the other stars of this weekend? I think we could. That's all the news. There's nothing more to say about bad statements and players' unions that haven't happened yet. But who are the other stars? We just mentioned Mikey Lewis as a star.
I thought Matt Ikivalu was fantastic for Catalan Dragons. I thought he defended as two men once they'd lost. He didn't get picked as the man of the match. I think that was Mike McMeekin officially, but
Wayfield's Mike McMeekin.
just thought watching that on again the telly, you don't see everything. It's why you need to go to a game, even though it's great to get home and watch the highlights of all the other ones you didn't
you
see.
didn't go to Catalan.
No, but I got to see the game.
Not after last year. Are you ever going to go back there?
Yeah. I thought he was great. I thought absolutely, unsung, went under the radar. It was a great game. It was a thoroughly enjoyable game, I thought. And Warrington again will be disappointed that they didn't control the game better, but they looked a more solid unit in many respects than at times last year. The Dragons, who I think a lot of us had perhaps prematurely written off because of the experience they were losing. Look, Jade Nikarima made a huge impact when he came on out of dummy half as well.
Carsten, you're not banned, by the way. We'll answer your questions in a minute.
But no, I'd throw Matic Ivalu into one of the heroes of the weekend.
Who was the hero of Keighley versus Bradford? Because you were there.
Oh, I'm never very good at picking out individual players, but it was a good game actually. Yeah. Bar a 10-minute period for Keighley, which was either side of half time. They conceded just on half time to make it, I think, 6-16 going in at the break, and then I think 2 or 3 quick tries at the beginning of the second half. It kind of killed the game a little bit, but in fairness to Keighley, they didn't give up. I would have expected Bradford to kick on from there and probably post 40 points plus, but they didn't. And Keighley got them probably worried towards the back end of the game. I think they got back within 8 points. They got another set of 6 and they kicked the ball dead, and that sort of the game fizzled out after that. But I thought they put in a decent performance, Keighley. Ultimately they're playing a championship side that probably most would expect to finish towards the top end of that table. You'd expect. So, I thought it was a decent game really.
The least highlights I saw was probably the Lee Huddersfield game, mainly seeing the tries rather than flick back through the full 80 minutes. But I'm told Jack Murchie was very good for Huddersfield. Their new signing this year made a lot of tackles and disrupted the Lee pack. So,
I got 5 out of 6 on the media tipping competition. Now, unfortunately, I tipped Lee on that, but I did a thing for some journalism students in Huddersfield, and I tipped Huddersfield to win on that. So I should have just gone with that. So why didn't I have more faith in Huddersfield trusting the process, especially with Lee's second season syndrome and all that? And I don't know, just never mind. But we're not talking about Fantasy Super League. That's Wednesday. I'm going to do another episode of that because that seemed to go down well. Apart from I did pick Brad Fash and he wasn't playing this week. But don't pick any Wigan or League players because obviously they're not playing this week. Ryan Brelly had -7 points after the game against Leeds. That wasn't very good for him.
Oh, the sin bin, did
Yeah,
that
so
affect
you
him?
get-
Yeah.
which he's got a one-game ban for, which
So-
is going to appeal.
Obviously, Ash Hanley's try was quite good, so that was good. What else? Yes. Lee Kershaw. He's keeping the ball in play for the London try. That was
Yeah,
superb.
good. Yeah.
So, because I managed to catch that because I was flicking between the 3 games and I caught that and it's like, wow, excellent. So it was a good weekend. It was good. The TV coverage was, from what I saw, there's some bits I didn't like, there's some bits I did like, but it's the same bits I didn't like before, so nothing changes there. Sky having just 2 people on commentary is much better than having 4 people trying to fight for airtime, which has always been the case and was proven by Channel 4 last year. I really enjoyed Dave Woods and John Wells on the Cass game until I turned over and watched the Warrington game. But John Wells was great because he's not having a fight to make his points, and Dave Woods is Dave Woods. And I thought John Wilkin explaining the head injury thing, the penalties for contact with the head was good on the Friday with Mark, and Mark's obviously great because we know him. And yeah.
Although he dodged the question when Matt, he was on the Momorowski tackle, he sort of asked the question and then Matt said, well, you now ask the question, why don't you answer the question? Oh, well, there's guys in green that can answer that question. He ducked that one, didn't he?
I must have turned over a lot.
Matt Whitley.
Yes.
Another one to throw into the... Anyone who gets as much joy out of scoring because he's finally playing for his boyhood club, that's got to be a good news story as well, and apparently he was very good. He's a great signing for St Helens.
Robert's been on. Refs are killing the game. Want to watch 13-a-side rugby, and one ref gave Leeds the game with a bad decision. Rubbish, Leeds. There you go, getting the decisions again. I didn't see it, so I don't know.
Which decision? I don't know. I mean...
we're not going to have 13-a-side, I don't think, in a lot of games for a while until everyone adapts to the new things.
And they ended up having to play a sin bin for repeat infringements, which, you know, they've had that for a number of years, Salford, in terms of their indiscipline in the ruck area.
And it was a professional foul on their own goal line.
Well, it was just cumulative offences. It was just, you know, offence coming after offence. So, you know, it tends to be when you're on your goal line when that happens. But so they've got to learn the lesson from that of Salford. But I don't know. I didn't watch all that game. I've seen enough of that game to realise that it's not the referee's fault, and it very rarely is. You know, there's 80 minutes in the game, so I think that's pretty harsh.
But Salford would be buoyed by that performance.
In the same way Castleford will be as well, because Castleford on Saturday were much better than Castleford of 2023.
Yeah. And Salford were within 10 minutes of holding out, whether players had been sin-binned or not.
And that's the difference between Hull and Salford, isn't it, in a way? That,
yes.
You know,
You're poor Rowley this week, you're going into training, you're going, right, here's all the positive stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what we want to build on. There's a bit of negative stuff here, we need to go through that and try and eradicate it. Discipline, maybe.
But John Wilkins' comments after the Hull game, we sort of basically said, well, no positives to come out of that
It's very
performance.
hard to think of one. Texoy was all right off the bench, but again, why didn't he start?
No, I'm not. By the way, it's not the end of it's not the end of the
one
season.
weekend.
It's not the end.
They might win at Warrington on.
But it's not a great way to start, is it? That's what I was suggesting last week. The fans would have wanted to see a better performance than they witnessed.
At home with all the hype and everything.
And 20,000 people there. You need to give them something.
The only way is up.
Well, of those 20,000 people, 10,000 will be season ticket holders, so they'll be back the next home game. Of the remaining 10,000, maybe 5,000 were Hull KR fans. So you probably got 5,000. Let's go along and see what it's like, and if I enjoy it, I might come back. And how many of those will come back? At some point, you've got to make a statement.
That's why Pearson needs to get Yaz in to sing The Only Way to the next game, or D Ream indeed, and things can only get better. Which they can't get. Can they get much worse than losing it at home by nil?
And not scoring.
To your big rivals. I don't know. Carson asked about the multi-view. We kind of talked about this when the YouTube wasn't working, but I'm assuming that will be sorted for, if not this week, the week after, because they do tend to get
I would
things
think
sorted
so.
quickly.
I was
the TV view at home, at least.
I was surprised to even see it. I wasn't watching on Friday night. Then I saw comments and stuff, and I thought, I wonder what this is all about. And I had a look and thought, it's terrible, really. So I would imagine that will go.
So when I'm at work, I've got 5 monitors in front of me, and one of those is split into 14, and you can't watch everything at once, but you're trying to.
It was like watching CCTV, wasn't it?
Yeah. If you're used to watching more than one thing at once, you kind of can do it. But yeah, it doesn't look great for the viewer at home. But that's the kind of thing in the first week.
Yeah.
We talk about Hull. Yeah. They're going to be better next week. I assume that things like that will that's something you can fix.
It didn't work in the ground because again, when you're quartering a big screen, it's not that big.
No.
And you don't know what to look at.
I can never see the big screen properly anyway. So I mean, these glasses are useless, but. It doesn't make much difference to me, but it will be all right. He's also concerned that London haven't got a shirt sponsor. I mean, like my Penrith shirt here, which the podcast listeners can't see, the sponsor's gone off. I washed it at the wrong temperature. It is concerning that a team in the top flight of an elite sport don't have a sponsor on their shirt. I don't know why they don't.
I reckon they will when they play their first home game against Catalan.
There you go then.
I don't know who it is, but
Is it 4020? No.
Seem to recall someone, we would, if the price was right, that they have done a deal with somebody.
Right.
I think it's more to do with the very late arrival of the apparel rather than the
Which
sponsor.
never helps. Though.
But
Which is a standard in all kit suppliers. You know,
But
it's got stuck in China.
Yeah. The fact that London are talking about maybe getting 5,000 people for their game with Catalan this weekend is admirable.
Yeah.
Which again tells you that all of the hype around the start of the season was London, are playing for nothing this year. Well, if they get, I think if they got over 4,500, it'd be the highest crowd since 2012. It's obviously the highest crowd they would have had at Wimbledon. First Super League game at Wimbledon. I don't know how that ties into the promotion that they've done maybe with football fans or whatever. But if they were to get that in a season where they're not supposed to have anything to play for, then it would tell you that the indicators are the game is doing all right.
Wimbledon, as a football club, from what we know historically, they're supposed to be represented by hard-working, maniacs in the past, but hard-working people. So you think that rugby league would appeal to them, but we'll see. We'll see as the season goes on.
That's a game I'm looking forward to watching this weekend, actually. And again, it's great that we've got all of the games covered, because I'm pretty sure London Catalan wouldn't have been a Sky choice, but intrigue-wise, I'm looking forward to seeing what Wimbledon looks like as a Super League venue.
John says coverage was great, other than the other scores being given out, made watching the on-demand games pointless. I wonder how they're going to.
I was going to ask you about that though. If you're Sky,
I wouldn't.
and you're spending all your money on your prime game of the night, you wouldn't want people turning over.
But if they're all my channels anyway, does it matter? Because if I'm watching Sky Sports Main Event, or I'm watching Sky Sports Arena or Sky Sports,
I don't know if is it a deliberate choice. Do you think?
But they've always done it, haven't they? So it's not as if they've always given out the scores.
But you couldn't watch them before.
No, on the Premier League they always give out the scores on a Sunday, even though you can't see the other games. I think it's. Would I still do that now? I mean, I would, because it doesn't. I don't care, because I'm not going to sit down and invest 4 hours in watching the other two games later on. But are there enough people
do
who would?
People do that?
No, just people who've got more time.
So.
When I watch Gladiators, I could choose to watch St Helens London in full if I wanted to, but I can watch the 15-minute highlights or whatever. I can watch.
Well, that was
when
good.
the NRL they had the All-Star games at the weekend. I've still got them on my box to watch, but when they put the 10-minute highlights on, I'll probably watch that instead.
But I have to say that having the highlights readily available on the Sky site and then on the BBC site is brilliant.
And it gives a good advert for Super League Plus, because every time the BBC tweets something, it says pictures from Super League Plus at the top, and then Mark Wilson saying, "This is the best try ever," or whatever he said. One of the great Super League
I did look at
tries.
a couple of the highlights videos on the BBC. Some were much longer than others. Some were like 2 minutes long, and some were like 10 minutes long. So that was interesting. I don't know why that was, but yeah, no, it's great that you can see that.
I'm assuming everyone's going to be. Where are the people saying, "Oh, where's the Super League show? Where's it gone?" Because it's not on anymore. But it's great. Overall, would there be things I would do better? Yes, but I'm not a TV producer, am I? So what does it matter whether I care?
I think it's been one of the best first weeks of the season. And the question now will be, we obviously get another boost this week with the World Club, and then we're almost into Easter, aren't we? So which is traditionally a very good time for attendances and
it's an interesting time slot on Saturday, isn't it? Because it's 8 o'clock kick-off. So it's not going against the light entertainment. Is that when Casualties on or whatever? I don't know. But it's on later than apparently. It's on later than Gladiators or whatever. So
it's one of the big sporting events of the weekend, and it's going to be a full stadium and a great atmosphere, and a team that you don't normally see on these shows. I think a lot of people will tune in and watch that.
They were at Man City on Saturday, where the Penrith Panthers interviewed pitchside on their in-house TV station and such, so that they're getting around a bit.
They've put the whole squad available for interview tonight in Manchester, which is great.
Yeah.
Playing Warrington in an opposed session.
Are we on the Burgess Out bandwagon yet, by the way?
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Not started yet. Robert says, when are we going to get honest opinions from managers instead of scared to give their opinions after matches? Well, the problem is if they come out and say, well, the referee's cost us the game, and he hasn't, well, they're going to get fined. So there's honesty and there's making up excuses for your team's
But there also
deficiencies.
needs to be honesty about the performance of their own players as well,
Yeah.
which again makes it very difficult to go back into the dressing room on Monday morning at training and have the respect of your players when you've gone on and lambasted them. So occasionally football managers do it and you think, nah, your job's not going to be any easier now, is it?
No, sometimes you just got to straight back stuff and keep it in house.
But also, what do people expect coaches to say?
It's very rare that they come out with a revelation in a post-match interview, is there? Or pre-match interview.
Or any interviews.
Yeah, true.
Some coaches have perfected the art of talking for 10 minutes and saying nothing. You play your tape back and you go, just get that quote. There isn't a quote. I haven't said anything.
I did some editing last week and it was very difficult to find some nuggets from people. And you are just realise you're finding 90 seconds of someone talking to fill 90 seconds of time of broadcast. That's just how it goes. But generally it's been an exciting weekend. The games have been games. You can't expect them all to be great. Some have been good, some have been less good. There's been some great moments, some great players standing out, and generally that positive feeling continues until we start reporting on match and say Wigan win, controversial match at Castleford. Was it controversial really? If you're a Castleford fan, it was. But if you're neutral,
I think if you're being absolutely honest, I think Castleford performed better than they did last year, which is what any fan would want. But Wigan never looked like they were probably going to lose that game, and they did have the part excuse of having a bigger event in their mind the following. It's like when a team play before a cup final, the week before a cup final. It's never normally a great performance, but Wigan were solid enough, and Cass had enough to build on. But I go back to the honesty of coaches. However honest the Cass coaches would have been, it was of their own making that they found themselves in the position that they did.
Is the waving the arm in a circle not a thing for a team warning anymore?
No, that's not been in
There
for
you
a
go,
number
Colin.
of
There you
not
go.
been in for a number of years.
I forgot all about that. That was good fun, wasn't it? Because everyone would moan and say, well, how long's that period last? Well, it's just why don't you send him off? Why is it not? So no, there you go.
It is a challenge actually with set restarts to communicate it to the players. So you'll probably hear a referee on the run sort of be saying something. But when everything was a penalty previously, it was part of the tactic of a team to concede a penalty to slow the game down, to then get a referee to call time off, to then bring a captain out to tell him exactly what the captain already knew, that was they were going to go on a warning. So yeah, I think referees try their best to try and communicate it on the run, but the reality is players know if they've just conceded 3 or 4 in quick succession, the referee isn't going to continue doing that without a consequence.
It's nice how the referees speak to the players, isn't it? Feel like they're human beings and not school children like other referees in other sports do.
There seems to be more of a rapport growing between the current generation of referees and the players.
As long as they don't, become superstars and not you, because you're here.
Well, definitely not that.
But, is the championship going to be shown on TV? Says Robert. Who knows?
They said they'd make an announcement before it kicked off.
Which is mid-March.
Yeah, is it the second week of March?
Yeah, something like that.
So they're hopeful that Premier buying back Viaplay will lead to them reigniting their desire to show rugby league, but nothing's signed yet.
My understanding is that the BBC deal, at the time of those articles, wasn't signed at all,
It
and
wasn't.
that might have caused a bit of friction, and it might not have. That was a very late thing, from what I understand. I'm waiting for that one coach, says Gav, to come out and say, yeah, the ref gave us that. We only won because of his decisions. That'd be good, that, wouldn't it? Imagine if they did. Imagine the amount of
Get
seething
fined for bringing the game into disrepute.
from the opposition fans if they did that.
I'd like a referee to come out and say, what about the 17 knock-ons that you're...
Well, Ray Tennant, when back in the day, he'd get the League Express and he'd look down at penalty count, whatever it was, like 12-3 or something, and he'd write, get me that coach's number. He'd be on the phone. Now then, your penalty count, disgraceful. You need to sort your discipline out. So he'd get on the front foot before they could get on the phone to him.
Got to behave better. Everyone's got to behave better. Did I enjoy the Wakefield game? Says Carsten. Well, I wasn't there, which was a shame. But as I said last week, if they hadn't scored 100 points, big clear out. close it down, but they did. So, what can you do?
I understand what Newcastle are doing, and it's League One that is their priority. So any chance to play at the moment is going to gel their squad for when it really matters. But they weren't favoured by having York and Wakefield in their 1895 group.
When a team in the same division as you wins by 100 points or 70 points, it's embarrassing. When a team in a different division in a cup competition wins by 100 points, it's just one of those things that happen. I think most people have accepted that Newcastle, with the draw they had and the players they had.
There's a lot of goodwill for Newcastle as well. Otherwise, 1,400 people wouldn't have turned up at Featherstone to watch a game where they already knew what the outcome was going to be. But I do think we want them to succeed. So there'll be latitude until they're, when their League One season kicks off, we'll view them against Midlands and Cornwall and teams that you would expect them to be slightly more competitive with and see where they are. But
that's where York get lucky by finishing second in that league.
Because
then it's sort of best qualifier, as it were. Or
hopefully Newcastle made a bit of money out of it yesterday. So that's the main thing. And the quarter-final draw has been made, so the road to Wembley continues from all those teams, and the semi-final draw as well.
Why do that
on Radio Cumbria, where they had just one team in, unless you think Barrow's in Lancashire. It depends. Barrow it's like the Schrodinger's cat, isn't it? They're either in Lancashire or they're in Cumbria, but maybe they're in both. It depends on.
So I saw the quarter-final draw, but I didn't see the semi-final.
Unfortunately, should Wakefield beat Barrow, they would go away to either Swinton or Bradford. Right. So that's for many and various reasons. Come on, Swinton. Especially if Barrow win. Come on,
Swinton on the
the Bradford fan who I bumped into at the game yesterday said, "What's that Richard Shaw like?"
He's all right.
No, it's Richard Shaw, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I said, he said, well, he don't like Bradford, does he?
Well, no, I don't like elements of Bradford.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with Bradford. I had a problem with the way, when they were readmitted, some were acting like this was, but that's just hypocrisy of people. And then we get into, many and various things that I want to get into on the programme.
Yeah, but he loved the show anyway, so...
Thanks for listening. Love the show. Is this Steve Wright in the
show.
afternoon?
Yeah, but it's a tribute to Steve Wright, that's why I
love the
said
show, Steve. It's great. Is there anything else going on? Or have we actually covered everything? I know there's lots of other games in the 1895 Cup, but we didn't see any of them, so I assumed it was all right. What we're going to do on, because obviously the Super League put out that big press release saying, record crowds, everything's great. Thursday night, Hull KR versus Leeds. Hull KR don't give out attendances. What are they going to do?
It'll be a sellout. They will.
I'm just going to say
they'll get a good crowd at Hull KR. First game of the season.
Yeah, that'll be a sellout.
Did anyone else give out attendances in the 1895 Cup, or is it all blank again?
1895 Cup percentages, 1,476 at Workington.
Yeah, that's good. For the big derby.
3,729 at Keighley.
That's good.
1,378 at Newcastle Featherstone.
Yeah.
1,662 Oldham and Rochdale.
Well, that's the big derby, wasn't it? Yeah.
700 at Hunslet for Batley's victory.
Big win, yeah.
1,088 for North Wales Crusaders against Widnes.
Yeah, good.
And no attendance given at Midlands Hurricanes in Sheffield.
So where was that game at North Wales? Are they back in this zipline stadium or something?
Yes.
They were nomadic towards the end of last year, weren't they?
So apart from Wakefield's game and Batley's win at Hunslet, it was a fairly, I'm not saying even games, but there was competitiveness in most of them, wasn't there?
Yeah,
so
Midlands were competitive against Sheffield.
The competition appears to have
I think it's been
worked.
good this year. I think having it in the group stages actually worked. Giving the League One clubs the home ties against Championship clubs has worked. Yeah. Oldham have been obviously a standout as they have in the Challenge Cup. As we're alternating between the two, aren't we? We're back to the Challenge
Cup this week. Yeah, I'm going to go down to the DIY Kitchens Mega Stadium on Sunday for the game against Hunslet ARLFC. What's Georgia Hale doing at Huddersfield? I was reading herself's column in the paper, in the magazine.
Did you not know that?
I don't know anything. I've only got one source. And they hadn't told me. They say, so you don't know who I'm referring to. Surely should be at Leeds with superstar try-scoring other half. When's that? The Women's Challenge Cup starts soon, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, that's in group stages as well.
Isn't there a wheelchair game
16th
as well
of
this weekend? Is this
The European Challenge is the 6th of April.
6th of April.
When Wigan play Catalan.
Oh, that's what I was thinking of. That was the right. Okay.
Buy the magazine.
Find out things you didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much, I think I've written everything in my column this month, so that makes...
I thought you were going to say everything in the magazine.
No, I
you
certainly
really
not
are
done
bigging
that.
yourself up here.
Do go back and watch the video of Martin Afire versus Ellery Hanley on Gladiators, though, because that's
Yeah, I
quite
didn't
good.
realise they'd been on, actually.
Oh, I didn't.
I saw
did,
the clip that you put
Did
on.
I put Andrew Sachs? Because it's John Sachs, the commentator in it. He wasn't Manuel from Faulty Towers. Oh no! Oh dear. Well, there you go. So make sure you. They were on Gladiators in the 90s.
Yeah.
And, well, you never get insured now. Obviously, well, maybe that's what the players are upset about. They can't go on new Gladiators as celebrities because of insurance and might fall off the wall or something.
Yeah, but they were being chased up the wall by female gladiators.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think they like that.
Ellery Hanley did.
That's why he was slow going up the wall. Yeah.
Ellery Hanley did, dearly me. Why aren't Crusaders asking Wrexham if they want to reassociate, says Gav. I mean, they don't get me started on Wrexham.
What, the football club?
Yeah.
I don't know.
know. The
Don't know enough of the story.
The famous people owners, I don't know because I don't watch films, so it all just passes me by. But it's the media attention. It's all a bit. They'll move on to the next one. There used to be FC United of Manchester. Everyone fell in love with. Then it was Salford City because their fairy tale story of having a billionaire owner, and now it's Wrexham with the fairy tale story of having rich owners. So. But Penrith, Wigan, what's going to happen on Saturday?
I think it's going to be fantastic. I mean, obviously,
Are we getting the excuses in already? Penrith, they just come for a holiday.
No. I think the best thing that could have happened for this concept was Penrith getting beaten at home last year. Penrith have been the dominant team for 3 years in Australia. For 2 of those years, they couldn't play in the World Club Challenge even if they wanted to. The 3rd year at home, I think they thought, we'll add our name to that illustrious role. They've been in 3 previous World Club Challenges, not won any of them. So it's the one thing missing off their CV, and they're absolutely committed to that.
I'm
So
sure they are.
there is no question that they are coming over here to put their best foot forward. That missing Jerome Luai is going to take a little bit out of them. But I think they've known for quite a while that he wouldn't be playing because he underwent a shoulder reconstruction surgery. So I think that they would have felt, he'd have been underprepared even if he had been ready to play for this game. So they'll have made a contingency for that. I cannot wait for this. I genuinely think it is the best 2 teams in their competitions, almost at full strength, with no excuses. What more in a full ground, and hopefully it isn't snowing.
I think it'd be a physical game as well.
I think it's if we're going to win, they've got to dominate the midfield.
Yeah.
Be a bit like the grand final. I think it might not be loads of points. It might not be exciting in the sense there's loads of free flowing rugby between the backs, but I think it's going to be gripping, and you're not going to be able to take your eyes off it. And it's and from this weekend we then move into Las Vegas, don't we? Which we don't have a say in how that's going to go, but I think that's massive for the sport. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
I just realised that I'm out on Saturday night, so I won't be able to see it.
So am I. So I mean, are you there?
I shall be there.
You'll be there.
Where else would you rather be?
Well, I mean, I would rather be there, but
You get a
Which
pie,
Wigan on
you get a
Wigan on
pie and a
Saturday
great
night.
game of rugby. What
Yeah.
would you want?
how many red cards?
I just think
Both
I think it'd be the best of what we've got. It might be a little bit like the Australia New Zealand semi final that we saw at Ellen Road. That was just
That was a tremendous
ridiculously intense from minute 1 to minute 80. And I think both of these teams can provide that. They will test each other. The fact that we get to see Nathan Cleary on, in his club, we've seen him on obviously British soil in the World Cup, but see him in his club, those close relationships he has.
And Wigan players will be well aware of how Super League is viewed as a competition in Australia, certainly by the one-eyed media who think everything's great.
And anything, Wigan, to be fair, their benchmark at the moment is St Helens, and if St Helens won it against Penrith last year, they want to win it against Penrith this year. It's set up to be a fantastic 80 minutes for the sport.
Looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll be celebrating Wigan's victory then
I'd
this
like
time
to
next
think
week.
so. It'd be great for this competition if Wigan could represent us and knock them off.
I'll leave the Penrith shirt up just in case.
I do think as well that you won't get any excuses from the Penrith management. I don't think Ivan Cleary's come here to say it was too cold or we were. The fact that they came a week early, they've been at Manchester City, they've got access to Warrington and all that. They will be as well prepared as they could possibly be.
Warrington helping out.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Is that going to be the angle? So when they play when Wigan play Warrington next, and that's the angle, you try to help Scupper are bid to become world champions by helping out Penrith Panthers.
Well, Sam still has a twang of Australian in his accent.
Burgess out. Hashtag blame Burgess 1 weekend.
I think he won't have learnt anything he didn't know about his team. I think he knows where their deficiencies are, but he got them playing with a bit more togetherness.
He's got time on his side, it appears,
absolutely.
which is...
and he's got Hull this week.
So he's got 2 points on his... Oh, it's a bit harsh. People think we're anti-Hull now.
I think people in Hull are anti-Hull at the moment.
Do you ever do a World Club Challenge or any...
I didn't referee one, but I judged a number. Yeah, I did. There was it Wigan Brisbane? It was fairly was it?
Oh, was
there a penalty where Gelling charged the ball down?
It was
on a
in
penalty goal
extra time, wasn't it?
and
Yeah,
then
because
got
Greg Eden scored the try. I did that one for
Yeah.
Talk Sport. That's how long ago that is. I remember.
I think
that.
I was on the line for that. I was on the line for the Wigan Cronulla game.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Robert
That was when we
refereed
played
Cronulla.
Championship.
Yeah.
And we had 3.
Because Wigan Brisbane was the as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did quite a number. I did St Helens. One of the games at Bolton. I think that was Brisbane, and a couple of the Leeds games.
That was a good game.
2 or 3 of the Leeds games. Yeah,
Was that Ellen Road or Headingley?
I'd done both. Again, Manly at Headingley, and then I think I did 1, if not 2, at Elland Road. I think there was a big brawl in one, wasn't there? A Canterbury game, I think. Yeah, no, they're great games. They're great games. Yeah, they are.
Because you don't see them.
No, it's a novelty, isn't it? It's a novelty, and for people that watch the NRL avidly, and I never really have, but it's people being able to see those players in the flesh, isn't it?
Well, that's why the NFL games at London, it's a novelty, isn't it? Because you don't.
And
get
that's
to
why
see
it's
them
sold
players.
out a month before.
Yeah.
It isn't 25,000 Wigan fans there. There's a lot of people that just want to see.
And everybody involved in the UK game should be supporting Wigan
Absolutely.
because this
100%.
is Super League versus NRL, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember in that World Club Series. I'm trying to remember which was the one in which, because obviously I did that Wigan Brisbane game as mentioned, but there was the game on Talk Sport. I think it might be Warrington versus. Did they play South one year? The Saints played South didn't they? In the actual. I don't remember who
Warrington played Cronulla.
I can't remember, but it was on Talk Sport too because Craig Murdoch and Scoey did the commentary. And when they did the national anthem, you could hear Scoey singing in the background. And I wish I had the copy.
Was he out of tune?
Was he ever in tune? I don't know.
I'll be interested to see Huddersfield St Helens as well.
Just before, yeah.
Because I did. Well, I won't see it because I'll be at Wigan, but I'll be interested to see how that goes because we'll get an indication of if it is a different Huddersfield with the way that they defended very well at Leigh. Leigh clearly, obviously, had 60 minutes when they had 20 minutes when they only had 12 men, 60 minutes with a full 13. So we'll get a better gauge, I think, of Huddersfield this week.
And the first Sunday game, Salford against Castleford in there.
Which we'll be able to watch.
So I can take my laptop to watch Wakefield and Hunslet
and
watch Salford.
Castle and Salford,
Yeah, that's good.
And
Even though it
Salford
kicks on at 2, so I can watch
in the
it.
ground that's now been acquired by
The council.
Yeah.
Good old councils. Good old councils. Last thing I was going to say, because I've just remembered it, on the games which weren't the full TV coverage, you didn't really notice that there wasn't more cameras, so it was perfectly fine.
And even on the websites, they still had interviews with the coaches, which they might not have been able to show at the time, but they were clearly still being done. And
Warrington played St George,
St George.
says Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. I knew someone would remember. Yeah, the World Club Series, another one. Rugby League ideas which we binned off after 2 years. Which reminds me that the Wigan Cronulla World Club Challenge, I think, was that the Pro Biz one or was that another one?
Oh, it might have been. What happened to
Well, we had Datcher on our shirts.
Oh, it might have been before then. Yeah. Yes, the good old people at Pro Biz. Remember when they sponsored everything? Yes, we do. So we'll be back next week, hopefully with less match review panel to talk about, but that's not going to happen, is it? Because